listening to the Marketing Happy Hour podcast, where we discuss career and industry insights with our peers in marketing.
We're here to talk about it all, like the ups and downs of working in social media,
how to build authentic relationships in the influencer and PR space,
managing a 9-to-5 and a side hustle at the same time,
how to be productive in your life and career without losing your sanity, and more.
Ultimately, we're here to build a community with you because we're all trying to navigate the world of marketing together.
Are you ready? Grab your favorite drink and join your hosts, Cassie and Erica, for this week's episode. Welcome back to Marketing Happy Hour. In this episode, Cassie chats with reporter Emmy Liederman of Adweek, one of our favorite publications to keep up with marketing and creative news. During their conversation, Emmy shares a peek inside her role and the stories she's able to write and encourage conversation around at Adweek, tips for PR professionals looking to land features for brands, insight into Twitter and LinkedIn, and strategies for improving your writing skills, including how to tell a story with impact. Grab your favorite drink and listen in.
Hey, Emmy, welcome to Marketing Happy Hour. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. How are you?
I am doing great. And you are tuning in from where right now?
I am tuning in from the very exotic and beautiful Scotch Plains, New Jersey.
I love it. I love it. But typically in New York, right? We were just talking off record about our experiences living there. So really cool to hear about your experience in the city as well.
Yes, it's definitely a whirlwind. And I feel like there's a lot of things that you have to sacrifice, i.e. your peace, to live there. But, it's cool.
Yeah, it's worth it sometimes. It's worth it sometimes.
Asterisk sometimes.
Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Okay, well, Emmy, I have to ask you a very important question as we get started here. What's in your glass today, or what's your favorite beverage that you are typically sipping on either in the evening or all day long?
Okay, so I'm probably going to give like a 10-minute answer to this question, but first, right now I'm drinking just an iced coffee with the Silk dairy-free oat milk, which I'm just going to be dropping like brand names.
Love
just
that.
hoping that they send some free product in return. But 10 out of 10, very stellar product, really makes like my morning coffee that's typically could be mundane, like a little bit more exciting. And I'm a big like Shirley Temple girl, I have to say. Sometimes a dirty Shirley, sometimes regular. We were just talking about how we love this whole boom of like non-alcoholic drinks and like the functional beverage market. So I feel like Kin Euphorics has a lot of really great options. And as someone who's had periods of sobriety or been sober curious for different parts of my life, I really love this idea of kind of like combining experiences where some people can be having alcohol in their drink and some people cannot, and everyone sort of feels included. I love how you just asked me like, what are you drinking? And I got this tangent. But yeah, I hope that was a sufficient answer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. The whole NA world that we're entering into, a lot of non-alcoholic beers, wines, like all of this stuff, all of these different brands emerging on the market. It's so amazing because to your point, everyone can go out and feel like there's something for them and they don't feel weird like ordering something totally off the wall that someone wouldn't normally order. But I love that. And Shirley Temples were my go-to growing up. I haven't had one in probably 15 years, but now I'm inspired to go order one.
Yeah, there's this kid on Instagram called the Shirley
Yes.
Temple King.
Yes.
Yes, of course. But I feel like I relate to him just a little too much considering our age gap, but he's a cutie. On the topic of the non-alcoholic beverage boom, Heineken did like for their Super Bowl ad this year, they did an ad for Heineken Zero and I covered it, and I just thought it was so cool how this market that's still so much so in its early stages, and then you take the booziest, most watched event of the year and you combine those two things to really make it a essential part of like American culture, or it's becoming part of American culture.
Yeah.
I just think that's cool. So yeah, we can talk about some
Oh
of the
my
stuff
gosh.
I covered as well. I don't want to make it about
Yes.
me.
Oh my gosh. So excited. A nice little teaser there. Well, I today have 3 beverages sitting on my desk, which is pretty normal for me. I drank a Celsius earlier, omitted today's coffee just because I needed an extra boost. But now I'm sipping on water and I have a United Soda's pear elderflower. So this is a great brand. They sent over a whole case of delicious goodies. So we've been going through and just trying all the different flavors, but huge fan so far. Non-alcoholic natural soda, which I absolutely love. So
You have to
highly
have like
recommend.
3 beverages on your desk at all times.
Yes.
You need one for hydration, one for fun, and one for energy.
You get it. You get it.
Yeah.
My soul sister. I love it. Absolutely. Have to stay hydrated. Oh my gosh. Well, I could talk beverages all day long, but let's dive into the meat of today's conversation. So Adweek, I know, is one of my favorite publications. Erica, also, who's not here with us today, absolutely loves it as well. So would love to just get a deep dive into your story, how you initially got involved with them, and what that experience has been like for you.
For sure. So it was March, maybe April of 2020. Didn't have an internship. I feel like whatever I had maybe fell through because of COVID, and everything was getting canceled. But I was on LinkedIn just looking for jobs, saw that Adweek still had an internship position open. I had recognized the name because honestly, I feel like they had this strategy on Snapchat news where they were like putting stuff on there. But I wasn't too familiar because I just studied journalism, broadcast and just, mainstream journalism in college, and then also Spanish. So I didn't really have like a background in advertising or marketing. But I applied anyway. I really loved how it was the LinkedIn easy apply because I just feel like cover letters are very, let's keep them in 2018 and
Yeah.
before. I don't know. And I got the position my first day. I basically just went right into it, writing about beauty brands and like them taking responsibility for racial injustice, especially during like the height of Black Lives Matter. Then I wrote a story about how the pandemic and specifically lockdown really impacted people's relationships with their bodies and just created this need for control over diet and exercise a lot more than usual, and how that was going to have long-term implications on just like the fitness industry. So I felt super like I could be trusted and offer this perspective as someone who didn't have a background in advertising and was able to create these stories that could be like that definitely are relevant to people who work in marketing, but also interesting to people who don't understand marketing deeply. And ever since then, I feel like that's kind of just been my role there, has been how do I put together a story that's going to help people do their jobs better and inform them, but also interest a wider audience.
Do you have any favorite subjects to write about?
I think anything that affects individuals in the workplace, and elicits some sort of response from readers that's like, I read your story and I felt super seen, or this really felt like it impacted me on a personal level, opposed to just like, oh, this helped me do my job better today. I really enjoy doing that, mental health related stories and anything involving like inclusion, whether that be inclusion for people who are sober in the workplace and want like alternative activities, or just people who don't feel like their racial identity or anything, their background is celebrated or recognized in the workplace. Those are some of my favorite stories.
Yeah, that's awesome. I could totally guess that just based off of the first 2 topics that you mentioned. It seems like this essence of being able to help people through your writing really connect and writing something that resonates with people on a deep level that makes them feel heard and seen. And so I love that you're creating this purpose for yourself through your writing and some of the subjects that you're covering.
My favorite thing is to make people who maybe have been in the industry for a while and are sort of outdated in their thinking, or even people that are newer in the industry, to reconsider like how their actions are affecting employees, and specifically being an advocate for people who are victims of ageism, both on like, younger people who don't feel like they're being taken seriously, or older people who feel like they're being boxed out of roles. I just think it's really important for us as journalists at trade publications to shed light on some of the interpersonal issues that are kind of affecting marketing, that go a little bit in advertising, that go a little bit beyond like, how do you win this pitch?
Yeah. Well, and I hope subjects like that, people reading it, especially in the corporate space, read that and they're encouraged to share those with their employers. I feel like we've made a lot of progress in those areas, but there's still more to be done. So I feel like that being covered in a publication like Adweek, someone reads that, they're encouraged to spark those conversations within those organizations. So it's not only helping the individual, like I said, feel seen, but hopefully it continues the conversation and really gets people at the corporate level thinking about how we can continue to improve in those areas.
Exactly. Like, my dream would be for someone at the corporate level to read my story and say like, oh, we're really lacking in this department, or this is something that's outdated that we should be reconsidering. Because it doesn't seem like people on those levels are always the most interested in hearing what other people have to say. So that would be cool.
You're in a point of high influence. And so thank you for shedding light on those stories. And I think just over time, the more we hear those conversations being started, like I said, hopefully that will just continue that resurgence, and lots to be done there though. We have a lot of PR professionals that listen to the show. And so curious if you have any tips for those professionals looking to land features for their brands. How do you feel relationship building with reporters comes into play as well with those kind of conversations?
Yeah. So I think as reporters, it's really hard to manage our inboxes and figure out how to work with PR professionals in the best way, in a way that, really gives them pointed feedback, but also sometimes it's hard to respond to everyone. So I think that the best way to like work with a journalist is to show interest in getting to know them, or even, if you're in the same city, like setting up a coffee or just doing an intro call. But usually I think it's really helpful to lead with I think some sort of message, usually an email that has a description of who you are and your clients, and then maybe also having some sort of news hook. So for example, if one of your clients is an expert in a certain field that is very much like in the news right now and is a really hot topic, like ChatGPT, for example, not to bring that up. That just came to my mind. Talking about really making it clear that their priority isn't to publicize, their only priority isn't to publicize the client. Obviously, that's their job, or to publicize whatever they're doing. They really want to work with you and help you tell a good story that you genuinely seem interested in, and something that your publication or your editor is going to be happy with, because they realize that this is truly in our case, an Adweek story that readers go to our site and expect. So I feel like just keeping in mind that it should be a mutually beneficial relationship, in that working together to carve out an angle, I think, is usually the best strategy, opposed to just saying like, can you cover this launch? Can you cover this campaign? Without really doing your research into what the journalist is passionate about. And I think that you can also tell when a reporter has written just one piece about something that they don't actually care about
Mhm.
because maybe their editor told them to, and when a reporter wrote something that you can tell that they actually put like their heart into. And that takes understanding that takes a little bit more than like a 5-minute Google search. So I think that journalists like can tell when someone has done their research and has, you know, positive intentions and wants to help you out as well as help themselves. So I think like after introducing all of that, saying, even if this isn't a good fit, would love to schedule a call or a coffee or something to talk. I think most people are usually like down for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds very similar to building mentorship as well in a professional space, is just having this mutual understanding, this give and take on both sides. It's not just you wanting to get something out of the reporter, for example. And so love the feedback about just reaching out, inviting them to coffee, whether it's virtual or whatever, and just chatting and seeing what their interests are, and really making sure that your stories align with their interests prior to reaching out. I know back in the day, especially, there were just a lot of PR professionals who would send every article under the sun to every reporter at an organization. And so someone who typically covers education, they were sending something about, a restaurant opening or something. And so just doing your research and following a reporter over time, I think really pays off in those different scenarios.
Yeah, and I think relationship building is one of the most, for me at least, the most fun and rewarding parts of my job, whether it's connecting with someone who works in PR or connecting with a source. Um, it's nice to be able to collaborate with people and have this dynamic and understanding that we both have different interests and we both have different responsibilities, but how can we come together to make something that's effective? And I mean, the nature of the job is, because it's journalism, you're not always going to get along with PR people and they're not always going to be happy with what you put into the world. Um, but at least having this understanding that you did fair reporting and that you consulted all the sources you needed to consult. I think there should always just be that like mutual respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to ask you about Twitter as well. I know Twitter is a big place where reporters hang out. They ask for resources, ask for news stories, share their stories there. So, how does Twitter, in your opinion, play into that relationship building aspect, or even just finding leads for different stories that you're putting together?
Well, it's just sad because over the past, I don't know, I guess since like December when I forget when he bought Twitter, but
Yeah.
last year, like end of last year, it's just very clearly not the same vibe and energy. And I think that a lot of journalists are actually switching over to primarily posting their articles on LinkedIn because they like actually get a lot more traction on LinkedIn than they do on Twitter, which
Mhm.
I feel like used to be the opposite. So, but in terms of like talking to PR pros on Twitter, I feel like there have been times where I've appreciated a link, like a Twitter DM, because I might be able to see it more easily than something that's in my inbox. But I think that the best use of Twitter for like a PR professional would be looking at the commentary, that like what people are posting sort of outside just their articles. For example, I sometimes will go to Twitter and say, I'm really interested in talking to people about how the dangers of marketing to Gen Alpha, for example. That's a story that I wrote recently. And typically on Twitter, I can have a little bit more of a pointed perspective on I think I give my opinion a little more than I do. I'm allowed to give my opinion more on Twitter
Mhm.
than I can on an article. And I think that's something that's kind of important to study, because at least for the Gen Alpha piece, I was kind of like, why are 10-year-olds suddenly applying like drunk elephant serum to their faces?
Yeah.
I couldn't have necessarily written that in my article, but I think it's valuable to look at sort of the conversational language that journalists use on Twitter.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. And it's a good point too about the drive for LinkedIn, because we know Twitter is fastly approaching a pay to play model with just exposure and everything. And I know a lot of people are going to pay for that, but a lot of people aren't. And so it's, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of conversations are visible to everyone versus behind this paywall. And so presenting those conversations in a platform where that's not happening, we'll definitely look out for that. But thank you for that. Uh, Curious as well, just based off of stories, and you've already talked about a couple of the stories that you've written and the angles that you've taken with them. What do you believe are the elements to an excellent story that either you're writing or just in your own consumer activity that you're reading yourself?
Yeah. I think the elements for me, and I think this is pretty much a rule that I apply to a lot of the content that I consume. Um, Something that is niche, but also feels widely relevant. So I think I read the articles that I'm usually most interested in are about like very specific topics, I've noticed. Um, but that specific topic is kind of like a time hook into something that has a broader like societal truth. So I think that that applies specifically to the stuff that I've written for Adweek, because a lot of it has implications for people that work at agencies, people who that work at brands or in media, but they are interesting from just a human nature, interpersonal relationship perspective, social media perspective, for people who are maybe like working in education. Like one example of that is I interviewed Billy McFarland, who's like the
Oh my
Firefest
gosh.
guy,
Yeah.
in January. And great like new year celebration. Started off on a good note, like interviewing this very interesting character. And that because it's such a big name and well-known story, it was relevant to a lot of people, but it was specifically relevant to people who worked in ad agencies, because the angle was like, why are these agencies giving him a second chance or a third or fourth chance, whatever number we're on now? And what does this say about the industry's willingness to forget controversy, especially for like white men?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and that was sort of some of the dialogue that was happening and being posted like after the article was published. But I think, making sure that your content sparks conversation within the industry as well as outside of the industry.
Yeah. And I liked your element, and we were kind of talking about this off record, but about allowing people to be seen in content. I think more and more, and we talk a lot about this in the world of marketing, specifically building messaging, content, people want to feel like they're seen, but they also want to feel like you're speaking directly to them, maybe a need that they have or a situation that they've faced before, and providing some sort of solution with your content there. So it kind of sounds similar to what you're passionate about creating, is allowing people's different challenges to be seen, but also highlighting some of those areas where we need to take better care for humans, or just again allow people to be seen through that content. So I love that emphasis that you've taken.
Yeah, thank you. I think it also is important to practice solutions journalism and to not just show that a problem exists, but offer up solutions. And that's again like something that I've been trying to do. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even if it's a negative thing, because I know we all, especially after the last few years, we want some sort of positive light to shine through in different stories. So even for you, I love the element of highlighting some of these challenges that we're going through, but here's this positive solution or angle that we can take with this, silver lining essentially, all is not lost, that kind of thing. So I want to ask you about writing skills as well. How have you developed your writing skills over the years? Any strategies for just improving in that area? I know I personally write a lot and I'm always figuring out ways to get better at that. So what would you say to that question?
Yeah, it's tough. I feel like I have really loved to document my progress as a writer, because I've always, ever since I was a little kid, I've always loved to write. And when I was in middle school, I did I did my newspaper. I was like the editor of my newspaper, and then
Oh
I
my
was
gosh.
the editor in high school and in college. So I feel like I have all of these, unfortunately, archives of like old articles. And I think ever since, literally for as long as I've enjoyed writing, I've been so insecure about like a draft being not a draft, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like I'd write something out, and I always feel the need. It's always been difficult for me to do stream of consciousness, because I sometimes will write something out and I'll be like, that's not, or I'll think of it in my head and I'll be like, that's not good enough for this Google
Yeah.
Doc that no one's gonna see. And so I think actually what has allowed me to become a better writer is to not be afraid of writing out the things that are in my head first and then going back and revising them, which I know is I know that's literally like how to edit your work, but it's very difficult to do it sometimes when you have this perception in your head that you're just a very talented writer. Sometimes you forget that like part of being a talented writer is having a draft that doesn't sound very good.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes sense, because I'm probably just explaining editing to everyone, but for me that's a difficult thing that I've sort of had to get over, is like you need to just get everything out on paper before editing it in your head.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think for a while, at least I know a lot of people close to me who feel like they have to write the most perfect thing, whatever it is, article, blog post, social media caption, the first time. And I love the encouragement of no, just sit down, do a brain dump, write out an outline, even if that's where you want to start, and then create more concrete ideas outside of that. So I think we need to be reminded of that all the time. But with that too, do you have any strategies or things that you do for getting over writer's block?
I'm just like patient and kind to myself is the biggest thing, and if I have time to take a break from something, I do.
Mhm.
um I and I don't beat myself up for it. I also typically don't tell myself like, oh, I'm gonna finish this part of this story within the next hour, because
Mhm.
then I freak out. I would very much prefer, I know some people would say like, oh, you don't have good like work-life boundaries, but I'd very much prefer writing at 9 p.m. than like 11
Yeah.
a.m. So just because anytime I'm like supposed to do something, I freak out and I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So, I think the key to not getting rid of, but like challenging writer's block is to ask yourself if you actually have any freedom and autonomy over when you can write. That's my best advice.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so great. I know I've had to figure that out over the years of like when I should be writing and when I shouldn't be writing. And I've recently found that the mornings for me are really good. It used to be at night as well. Like I used to have my most productive periods between like 9 and 12. But now it's like 8 to 11. I'm the best at writing. So just giving yourself grace if it doesn't come out like you said, step away, let it breathe, whether you come back to it in an hour, the next day, like whatever it is, but also have that like self intuitive nature of figuring out like when you are the most productive in those areas. And to your point, if you have the flexibility, whether you're in a corporate space, entrepreneur, setting time aside, maybe don't book in meetings or whatever during those times and allow yourself to be creative in those times you're the most creative.
Exactly. And no, I think that that's really important. Giving yourself grace and not beating yourself up for maybe not finishing something in the timeline that you originally expected to. And also saying things out loud. There's been times where I haven't been able to articulate what I wanted a story to be about. So I've just called one of my friends and said it to them on the phone and maybe like took notes as I was talking, because I realized that this, and then gotten feedback from them because I realized that like this is exactly what I'm trying to write about. But I just couldn't formulate it like in text. Or even I think one of my editor told me one time to like explain a story idea to my dog and like see how he reacts.
Oh
But
my gosh.
just be like, how would you explain this to, like, figure out how you would explain this story to another person, or what you would say on LinkedIn, like if you were posting the article and had to do a little blurb. So yeah, and getting it into the outside world first in some capacity is always a good way to go.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, get feedback from your dog, from your friends, whoever it is. I'm a big fan of like voice notes too. So same way, like if I'm not able to articulate something in writing, I just literally like voice dump everything I'm thinking about into my notes, and I can kind of go back and readdress that later. And now with the whole world of AI and everything, there's a lot of platforms that'll even transcribe that for you, and that can help with the brainstorm process. And so love the idea of just speaking it out into the universe, seeing what kind of feedback you get, and then, you never know what can come from that.
Exactly. Yeah. I love a good voice note. I feel
Yes.
like I wish that I wish that they were more accessible in that I could just be in the office when it's quiet and send someone a voice note, because I just can't. Sometimes texting just is too much work.
Oh, I
And
can't.
you can't really get your point across.
I know.
So,
And when you write all day, sometimes you just need a moment of like not writing and maybe putting your thoughts down in another way. So I totally get that. Well, Emmy, I want to ask you too about just your presence in the platforms that you've built for yourself over time, especially LinkedIn and Twitter. How has that been important for your career? And do you have any tips specifically for just building your presence on those platforms?
yeah. So I don't know why, but I guess because there are a lot of like cringy motivational LinkedIn influencers, anytime I see someone that I haven't seen in a while, they usually will say something along the lines of like, "Oh, I see your LinkedIn posts all the time." And I kind of have this internal hatred where I'm like, I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
But I think because I'm posting my articles and not really about myself, I give myself some grace there. But I think that LinkedIn is definitely like has done so much for me in terms of like connected me, like whether it's connecting me with sources or giving me a story idea, or just like giving me that some of that external validation of the stuff that I've written about is meaningful to our readers. um I like that. I think that LinkedIn has like definitely opened the most opportunities for me professionally. And then Twitter, I feel like back in the day I used to be like a little sillier on Twitter,
Mhm.
but now I feel like I don't get enough engagement even if I say something like objectively hilarious. So I don't use Twitter as much, but I don't know. I think the main usage, like, even though I make fun of marketing Twitter because it's usually obnoxious, there are times that I have like learned something from there, or at least realized like, okay, this person seems not that annoying. I can use them in
Yeah.
my story. So
My
yeah,
gosh.
I think I definitely want to keep up like my presence on LinkedIn in terms of sharing articles and getting feedback, or sometimes someone will comment, you should look into this next or something.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. LinkedIn is incredible. We talk about it all the time on the show. It's, I think, Eric and I's favorite platform ever. And so if you're not on LinkedIn, don't sleep on it. Like, not sure why you're not already. So get on there.
yeah.
But also to your point, just the connectivity opportunities there. I mean, you and I connected on there. That's how we got you on the show. A lot of our guests that we bring on are through LinkedIn. And so having a presence there, sharing, connecting with people, even if it's just for virtual coffee or whatever, it's such a powerful platform.
Yeah. No, and I think it's just fun and it feels, I mean, there's definitely a toxic side of LinkedIn where people feel like they have to compete
Yeah.
with maybe their peers, or I felt that a lot in college when people were talking about their internships or like where they their first job. I sort of had this like pressure and self-inflicted pressure, but I don't know, I think it can also be a beautiful place to just celebrate each other's work and progress. So now I
Yeah.
feel like I'm in a LinkedIn ad.
Yeah. No, don't be a jerk on don't be a jerk on any platforms. Like I said that on one show that I was on at one point, and it's so simple, but it's true. If you're typing something out and you're like, this sounds a little rude, like maybe don't share
Yeah.
it.
I don't get a lot of hate. Well, okay, my brother's also a journalist, and I feel like compared to him, he gets a lot more like backlash for his articles. I don't get a lot of like negativity around my articles, but someone will say something. I need to like restrain myself because someone will say something and I'll be like, I need to respond.
Yeah.
And then all my friends will be like, you need to choose peace. Like just
Yeah.
pretend you didn't see it.
Choose peace. I love it. Hashtag choose peace. No, for sure. It's kind of similar with like writer's block. Like type something out, give it a moment, think about it. And chances are like if it's a aggressive response to something, it may not be the best move. So just give it a moment. And we all know the notion of if it's out on the internet, it's out there forever. So you just never
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
It's just weird how people feel the need to start fights on
I know.
LinkedIn. Like it's not Facebook,
I
you know.
know. It's not Facebook, it's not Twitter, even Instagram. I've seen all the things on all the platforms, but LinkedIn, let's keep LinkedIn sacred. That's what
I
we need.
know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of stressed out because I opened up my Instagram the other day and I saw that I got like the blue check, but I don't use Instagram
Congrats.
for I know that wasn't really the point of this story, just to clarify. But I was gonna say I don't use Instagram for like professional stuff that much. Like maybe I'll
Yeah.
post like one in every 5 articles on Instagram. But do you think that that's like additional pressure of having to like post a certain type of content, or do you think I should just like have fun with it?
No, I think you should have fun with it because people, even if you just say what you do in your bio, awesome. But I think Instagram, even to this day, like I personally do not post much work stuff on my Instagram page. I felt this pressure and this imposter syndrome that I need to be more businessy on there. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's like my sacred place to share whatever I want to share. So I say, no,
Yeah,
do what
we
do what
need
you want to
we
do.
need the Fort Lauderdale beach bikini pics. We don't.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with social, honestly, I think LinkedIn like allow that to be your business world, Twitter as well, like is great for that. But I think Instagram, if you want that to be like your place to showcase who you are, what you're into, all that stuff, then do it. Like I don't think we need to force ourselves and to pressure ourselves into creating every space as this like self-declaration of what you do for a living and showcase your work.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of times people, just using your Disney example,
Yeah.
people will be like, I was I was in Disney World this weekend and overwhelmed by the architecture, and this copy reminded me of the time that I wrote something
Yeah.
in 72 and sunny. And I'm like, just post the pic and be like
Yeah.
having a great time in Disneyland.
Yeah. Even if it's just emojis in the caption, like post what you want to post. I've had this conversation so much with so many of my friends, and it's like release the pressure. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. And like maybe it could change in 6 months from now. But yeah, we need to get over this hump of like feeling like we have to use every platform as like, look what I'm doing every day at work. It doesn't need to be that way. So
Yeah, yeah. Or every platform period. Like
yeah.
I love a good deciding to put your energy into something more than something else, you know?
Yeah. Do you? Do you? Well, Emmy, this has been so wonderful. I have a very important question for you as we close out, and something that I love to ask all of our guests. But what do you know now that you wish you knew early on in your career?
This is just transferable life advice, but I would say if you need to take a step back, everything that matters will be waiting for you when you return. I think that a lot of times people think that if they take a break from a project or from hanging out with their friends, or just take any sort of like mental health, taking a step back from anything, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be missing out. Oh my gosh, I am not going to have this to look forward to when I get back. But I mean, from my experience, the time that I've had to pull back and regroup, everything that mattered was there when I returned. So I just think that that's important to keep in mind.
Oh, so good. Thank you for that. Yeah, definitely needed that reminder as well. But we want to keep staying in touch with everything that you're doing. We'll definitely have to have you on again because this was so much fun. And so we'll certainly check in with you again down the road. But in the meantime, where can everyone stay in touch with you, read your articles through Adweek? Where can we connect with you online?
So on Twitter and Instagram, I'm just Emmy Liederman. And then, or no, sorry, I messed up. Wait. On Twitter and LinkedIn, I'm Emmy Liederman. And on Instagram, I'm Emmy Tony Grammy. And I have to update my website, but emmyliederman.com coming to you soon with updated articles and podcasts and everything like that. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me.
I'm obsessed with your Instagram handle. We've had so many clever ones on recently, people sharing some of their just creative handles. So that's definitely taking the award, literally. So thank you for that.
I love the enthusiasm
Yes.
towards my username. It's just it's a part of me that, because I made that my username like so long ago. So it's just part of my identity now. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and just reinforces like what we were saying a minute ago. Instagram is just your world, and just do you through the platform. And that's what you're doing. So I love it. Awesome, Emmy. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you so much. I had a great time. I really appreciate it.
That's all for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode with Emmy, please remember to rate and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. For more Marketing Happy Hour goodies, visit marketinghappyhr.com or follow us on Instagram at marketinghappyhr and send us a DM. We'd love to hear from you. Have a great week. We are so excited to share that our first ever free Marketing Happy Hour digital resource is now available. Download the Dream Career Game Plan today at marketinghappyhr.com/freebie. That's marketinghappyhr.com/freebie. This 5-step workbook will guide you through defining your goals, building your network, diversifying your skills, influencing where you're at, and investing in your growth. Cassie and I created this resource with marketing careers in mind, but the framework can be applied to any industry. Our hope is that this workbook will help you truly elevate your career, whether you're in the market for a new position or just looking to make your mark in your current organization. No matter where this resource finds you, we are cheering you on every step of the way. So go check it out at marketinghappyhr.com/freebie to download and make your career dreams come true.